The day had been perfect, but Emma felt a strange flutter of nerves as she adjusted the lace of her wedding dress in the quiet corner of the bridal suite. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting a warm glow across the room, and every detail seemed just right. The flowers were fresh, their scent mixing with the faint perfume she had chosen, delicate and subtle, yet memorable. The ribbons and decorations shimmered softly. The chairs were perfectly aligned, and the entire hall waited silently for the day to begin. Emma's heart raced as she imagined the moment she would walk down the aisle. For years, she had pictured this day in her mind: the laughter, the music, the family and friends cheering as she and Daniel would promise their lives to each other. Yet now that it was here, she felt an unexpected nervousness. It was not about marrying Daniel. She loved him more than words could express, but a subtle fear. A quiet thought that life after the wedding might not always be as perfect as this moment. Meanwhile, Daniel stood at the grand entrance of the hall, straight-backed and calm on the outside, though inside his heart was a whirlwind of emotions. He had always imagined his wedding day as flawless, filled with joy, laughter, and love, yet a shadow of unease lingered. It wasn't about Emma or their love. He trusted her completely, but a small part of him wondered if he had been honest about everything in his past. It was not a secret meant to hurt, but a part of his life that had shaped him, and he worried that it might resurface at the worst possible time. Despite this, when Emma stepped into view, radiant in her dress, Daniel felt a rush of warmth, the kind that made the world fall away. He took a deep breath, ready to welcome her, ready to face the day, ready to step into a life that was his dream, but now also their shared reality. The ceremony began, and as Emma walked down the aisle, she noticed every detail with a heightened awareness: the soft glow of the candles, the gentle smiles of her family, the quiet pride in her mother's eyes, and the emotional tear in her father's. Daniel waited at the altar, his smile, steady eyes shining with love and perhaps a touch of worry. The officiant's voice carried over the quiet crowd, soft yet commanding, asking them to pledge themselves to one another. When Daniel's hand finally met Emma's, a current of connection and reassurance passed through them. It was in that moment, as their fingers intertwined, that the world outside ceased to exist. It was just them, their love, and the promise of a future together. The vows came next, each word heavy with meaning. Emma's voice shook slightly as she spoke, the emotions she had bottled up for years spilling over. She promised loyalty, trust, and love, not just in the easy days, but in the moments of difficulty she had no way of imagining yet. Daniel's words were calm, steady, but no less heartfelt. He spoke of admiration, support, and unwavering presence, and he included the subtle truth of his hope that life's challenges would never shake the bond they shared. As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the applause and cheers filled the hall, and Emma felt a mixture of relief, joy, and something else as small, quiet tension she could not yet define. After the ceremony, the celebration continued, with smiles, laughter, and the soft music that accompanied every movement. Guests moved from table to table offering congratulations, while Emma and Daniel shared quiet glances across the room. There was joy in abundance, but within those glances lingered unspoken thoughts. Emma noticed that Daniel occasionally seemed distracted, his smile not fully reaching his eyes. She wondered if he, too, carried some unspoken weight, though she trusted him and loved him deeply. She decided to let it pass for now, believing that tonight nothing mattered but the union of their hearts. Finally, the reception wound down, and it was time for the newlyweds to retreat to their honeymoon suite. The journey from the grand hall to the quiet seclusion of their room was short, yet filled with anticipation. Emma's mind was buzzing with images of their future together. The small adventures they would share, the quiet nights, the laughter, and the comfort of simply being with someone who knew her heart completely. Daniel, meanwhile, carried his own thoughts, careful to mask the lingering unease. But aware that the night held more than just celebration, he loved Emma with a depth that frightened and exhilarated him, and he feared that the truth of his past, if revealed too abruptly, could shake the foundation they had just built. When they entered the suite, Emma paused, taking in the serene atmosphere. Candles flickered softly on tables around the room, casting gentle shadows, and a delicate scent of roses and vanilla lingered in the air. The city lights glimmered through the large windows, stretching endlessly in every direction, as if the world itself was witnessing this intimate moment. Emma felt a soft rush of relief, a sense of private peace away from the crowd, and she turned to Daniel with a radiant smile. Daniel returned the smile, though it was tinged with concern, and took her hand. Holding it with a gentle intensity, they moved closer to each other, and for a brief moment, nothing else existed. Emma rested her head on Daniel's shoulder, and he held her close, feeling the warmth of her presence seep into every part of him. There was a silence, not awkward but full of unspoken emotion. A pause that both needed before the intensity of the day could settle. Emma thought about the journey that had brought them here, thought first dates, the quiet conversations, the shared dreams, and little fights that had only strengthened their bond. She remembered how Daniel had surprised her with small acts of love, the way he always remembered tiny details, and how even in disagreement, he had shown a patience and care that made her feel valued and cherished. Daniel, in turn, reflected on their shared past, the moments that had tested their bond, the laughter that had sustained them, and the trust that had been built through every challenge. He knew that the world beyond this suite would continue to be unpredictable, full of decisions that could not always be foreseen. And yet, in that quiet, flickering candlelight, he felt a sense of certainty that no matter the difficulties, Emma was the person he wanted to face them with. Yet, even in this perfect moment, a subtle tension lingered. Daniel felt the pull of unspoken words, the knowledge of a past connection that had unexpectedly resurfaced. It was not a secret that could harm Emma intentionally, but it was a part of his life he had never fully shared, a part that now threatened to cast a shadow over their perfect day. He questioned whether tonight was the right time to reveal it, or if waiting until a calmer moment would be wiser. But he knew in his heart that truth had its own way of finding daylight. Emma sensed it too, though she could not name it. She noticed the slight hesitation in Daniel's smile, the way his hand lingered on hers with a careful, measured pressure. It was different from the spontaneous warmth she had come to know. It was cautious, deliberate, as if he carried a weight she could not yet see. But she chose not to ask, believing in the strength of their bond and in the love that had brought them together. Perhaps some things were meant to reveal themselves in time, and tonight was simply a night for closeness, for quiet connection, and for the soft, unspoken acknowledgement of love. They settled near the large windows, the city below, a sparkling landscape that seemed endless and full of possibility. Emma leaned against Daniel, feeling the rhythm of his breathing, and allowed herself to imagine a lifetime of mornings just like this one, peaceful and full of warmth. Daniel, though aware of the tension building quietly in his mind, allowed himself to be present, to savor the moment without yet confronting the complexity of what lay ahead. The candles flickered softly. The quiet hum of the city below mingled with their shared silence, and the room seemed suspended in time. For a moment, the perfect facade of the wedding, the celebration, and the day's meticulous planning created a bubble of safety and intimacy. But underneath, both felt the subtle stirrings of something that could not be ignored. Daniel's past was not malicious, but it was real, and Emma's trust, though complete, was delicate. Neither spoke of it, yet both sensed the edge of change, waiting in the wings. That night, meant for celebration and closeness, carried the quiet promise of transformation. Theirs was a love rooted in sincerity. But even the strongest roots can be tested by storms that arrive without warning. Emma finally turned her gaze to Daniel, her eyes bright and curious, sensing both affection and hesitation. "I can't believe it's finally us," she whispered, a soft smile playing on her lips. Daniel returned the smile, though it was tinged with the awareness of the truths he had yet to reveal. "It's everything I hoped for," he said softly, and for a brief moment, words sufficed. The unspoken fears and lingering shadows were held at bay by the warmth of the present. Yet, as they held each other, the world beyond the suite continued to move, bringing with it realities that could not be ignored. The wedding day was ending, but the true test of their love, trust, and resilience had only just begun. Emma and Daniel were about to face challenges neither could have predicted. And the night ahead would become the beginning of a journey that would change everything they thought they knew about each other. The night stretched on, quiet and still, but within the honeymoon suite, the air was heavy with thoughts neither Emma nor Daniel dared speak aloud. Candlelight flickered across the walls, casting soft shadows that danced like secrets around the room. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, fingers nervously tracing the folds of her dress, feeling the exhilaration of the day slowly give way to a subtle tension. She had imagined this night countless times, soft whispers, gentle laughter, the warmth of being alone with Daniel, but tonight carried a weight she couldn't name. She glanced at him, and in that familiar face, she saw something different, something serious. Something that asked for patience, for understanding, and perhaps for courage. Daniel noticed the shift in her gaze. He had been holding back all evening, trying to protect her from a truth that had unexpectedly resurfaced. A connection from his past had reached out today, just hours before the ceremony. And he hadn't yet found the words to explain it. He loved Emma with every part of his being, but he also knew that honesty was a bridge he could not avoid crossing. The problem was timing. Night was supposed to be a night of joy, of intimacy, of celebration. Yet the knowledge of what he had to reveal made him feel both anxious and restless. How could he tell her without tainting the magic of their wedding night? And yet, leaving it unsaid felt dishonest, a betrayal of the very trust he had pledged. To protect Dot, Emma broke the silence first, her voice soft and tentative. "It's so quiet now," she said, her eyes reflecting the golden candlelight. "I thought the wedding would be the most important part, but this feels like the real moment, just us alone." Her words were simple, but the underlying longing, desire to connect, to understand, to feel truly safe in Daniel's presence was unmistakable. Daniel nodded, taking her hand with careful tenderness. Aware of the weight that hung between them, finally unable to bear the silence, he spoke. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you." His voice was low, serious, and unsteady despite his best effort to remain composed. Emma's heart skipped, a flicker of apprehension crossing her features. She had pictured many confessions. In her mind, over the years, silly fears, minor mistakes, but never something that could change everything tonight. "What is it?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper, a blend of curiosity and gentle concern. Daniel drew a deep breath, then, kind that seemed to carry the weight of the past decades. "Earlier today," he began, "someone from my past reached out. I didn't expect it. I didn't want it to interfere, and I tried to ignore it, but now I feel you have the right to know." Emma's eyes widened slightly. She had trusted him completely, yet the sudden seriousness in his tone ignited a spark of worry. She leaned closer, her hand tightening around his. "Tell me," she urged softly, though every instinct told her to brace herself for something she might not understand. Yet Daniel hesitated for a heartbeat longer, as if weighing the impact of each word. Then he continued, carefully, slowly, choosing them like fragile glass. "It's not about love," he said quickly, seeing the question that flickered in Emma's eyes. "It's about someone I once knew, someone I cared for deeply long before I met you. They reached out today by accident, I think, and it reminded me of things I should have shared with you earlier. I didn't want this night to be tainted, And I still don't, but I owe you honesty. Emma's mind raced. She had expected surprises. Of course, weddings always carried some unexpected moments, but nothing like this. A part of her wanted to recoil, to pull back and demand clarity immediately. Yet another part of her trusted Daniel completely. She could see the sincerity etched into his features, the tension in his jaw, the vulnerability in his eyes. He was not hiding anything from her out of malice. He was struggling to find the right way to reveal a truth that had unexpectedly returned to him at the worst possible moment. She took a slow, steadying breath, reminding herself of all the reasons she had fallen in love with him. Daniel had never been perfect, but he had always been honest, kind, and unwavering in his love. And now, in this room, she realized that love was not about perfection. It was about trust, about facing uncertainty together, about holding hands. Even when the path ahead was unclear. "We'll figure it out," she said finally, her voice soft but firm. "Tonight, just tell me what you need too. I'm here." Daniel's eyes softened, a mixture of relief and lingering worry passing through them. He began recounting the story of his past connections, someone who had once meant a great deal to him. A friendship that had turned complicated, emotions that had lingered longer than they should have. He spoke of letters of unresolved feelings, of choices that had defined him but never diminished his love for Emma as he spoke. Emma listened closely, her mind tracing the contours of his words, absorbing not just the story but the honesty and vulnerability behind them. The confession, though not romantic in its nature, was deeply emotional. It was a reminder that love was never simple, that every heart carried layers, and that intimacy was not only about closeness but also about trust. Emma felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Relief because Daniel was telling her the truth. Anxiety because the past, even distant, had unexpectedly intruded on the most important night of their lives. Yet, more than anything, she felt love steady, enduring, and patient. Hours seemed to pass like minutes as they talked, sitting close together on the bed. Daniel occasionally reached for her hand, squeezing it with gentle reassurance. And Emma leaned into him, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. They didn't need to speak constantly. Silence held meaning too. The soft rustle of the curtains. In the night breeze, the distant hum of the city below. The flicker of candlelight, they all blended into a quiet symphony of intimacy. The weight of confession had brought them closer, not apart. At one point, Daniel paused, looking at Emma, with an intensity that made her heart flutter. "I know tonight should be nothing but joy," he said quietly, "and I didn't want to risk taking that away from you. But the truth is part of who I am, and I want you to know me completely." Emma smiled faintly, a tear forming at the corner of her eye. She reached up, brushing a stray strand of hair from his forehead. "I love you," she said simply, "and I don't need perfection. I just need honesty. You're giving me that, and that's all I could ever want." The room seemed to breathe with them, the tension softening into a calm warmth. Daniel felt a weight lift from his chest, the relief of finally speaking aloud the words he had carried silently. Emma felt a mixture of awe and tenderness, realizing that the man she had married was not just the romantic hero she imagined, but a real, flawed, sincere person who had made mistakes, faced challenges, and still chosen her, fully and completely, even as the night deepened. The city outside glittering with lights, the couple remained awake, speaking in hushed tones, sharing dreams for the future, recounting small memories of their relationship, and reaffirming their commitment to each other. Every word, every touch, every glance wove a stronger bond, one forged in trust and honesty rather than mere romance or ceremony. They laughed softly at memories, sighed at shared regrets, and clung to one another in silent comfort. Yet, despite the growing intimacy and the emotional release, both knew that the night was far from ordinary. The wedding night, meant for celebration, had unexpectedly become a crucible of truth. It tested their patience, their understanding, and their capacity to love fully despite uncertainty. The revelation had not ruined the evening. It had reshaped it, giving it depth, meaning, and a rare kind of beauty. They were no longer just newlyweds enjoying a honeymoon suite. They were two souls confronting the complexities of life and love together. Daniel, at one point, stood by the window, gazing out at the city lights, and Emma joined him silently. They held hands, leaning on each other for strength, the cool glass beneath their fingers grounding them in the present. "Whatever comes next," Emma whispered, "we'll face it together." Daniel turned to her, eyes glistening in the candlelight, a small, grateful smile touching his lips. "Always," he replied. The night seemed endless, yet time moved forward, each minute layering more depth onto their bond. They shared stories from childhood, laughed at embarrassing moments, reminisced about first dates, and quietly mourned lost opportunities. Every conversation was a thread, weaving them closer together, strengthening the foundation of their love. And all the while, the truth that had once seemed heavy now became a bridge up. Bridge not just to honesty, but to understanding, compassion, and unwavering trust. Eventually, the first hints of dawn touched the horizon, and the room was bathed in soft golden light. Though sleep had not yet come, both felt a profound sense of calm. The confessions, the fears, the long-hidden truths, they had not destroyed the night. Instead, they had transformed it, turning anxiety into connection, fear into intimacy, and tension into love. The wedding night, which had begun as a celebration of unity, had evolved into a testament to resilience, trust, and the enduring strength of human hearts. Dawn broke softly across the city, spilling pale gold and gentle pink across the streets below the honeymoon suite. The first morning light filtered through the curtains, touching Emma's face and stirring her awake. She blinked slowly, the events of the night rushing back in fragments, the confession, the tension, the quiet intimacy that had bound them together in ways neither expected. For a moment, she lay still, savoring the warmth of the bed, the faint scent of roses, and the comforting weight of Daniel's arm around her. She had slept little, yet in that quiet, golden morning, she felt a sense of clarity and resolve she hadn't known before. Daniel stirred beside her, turning gently to meet her gaze. His eyes were soft, touched with the vulnerability of the previous night, but also carrying the steadfast love that had drawn her to him in the first place. "Morning," he whispered, his voice hoarse but tender. Emma smiled faintly, brushing her hand across his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart beneath her fingers. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the unspoken promise of safety, trust, and enduring love. They rose together, moving toward the window that overlooked the city. The streets glimmered with early light, people moving in their ordinary lives, unaware of the quiet revolution of emotions taking place high above them. Emma and Daniel stood side by side, holding hands loosely, as if testing the strength of their connection in the calm after the storm of the previous night. Neither spoke immediately. Silence had become their shared language, a way to process the emotional weight that had settled around them. Finally, Daniel broke the quiet. "I can't believe how last night turned out," he said softly, looking at her with a mixture of awe and regret. "It wasn't supposed to be like that. I wanted it to be perfect, simple, full of happiness. I didn't expect the past to interfere, not on our wedding night." Emma reached up, placing her hand gently on his cheek, stopping him mid-thought. "Daniel," she said, voice calm yet firm, "perfection isn't real. We can't expect life to always be simple or easy. But what we have, the honesty, the love, the way we faced last night together, that's what matters. That's real." He nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. The confession from the night before had not shattered their bond, though he had feared it might. Instead, it had become a testament to the strength of their connection. The act of speaking honestly, of facing discomfort instead of hiding from it, had opened a new dimension to their love. Daniel realized then that Emma's trust was not fragile. It was resilient, capable of weathering storms that neither could have foreseen. As the morning progressed, they moved through the suite together, preparing a light breakfast. The room was filled with the soft clatter of dishes, the scent of coffee, and the quiet comfort of shared routine. Emma poured 2 cups, handing one to Daniel, who accepted it with a grateful smile. They sipped in silence for a while, each lost in thought yet deeply aware of the other's presence. There was a new intimacy here, a sense that the previous night's revelations had deepened their connection rather than weakened it. Finally, Emma spoke again, her voice lighter, tinged with curiosity and hope. "Do you think that night will always be a part of us?" Daniel considered her question, swirling the coffee in his cup, the steam curling upward. "Yes," he said slowly, "but not in the way that frightens me. It will be a reminder of honesty, of trust, of how we handled something difficult together. It will be the night that changed everything, but in a good way. It made us stronger." Emma smiled, a faint tear slipping down her cheek, and Daniel brushed it away gently, his thumb lingering on her skin, a silent promise that whatever the future held, they would face it together after breakfast. They decided to step onto the balcony, letting the morning air fill their lungs. The city was awakening fully now, the streets bustling, the sounds of life creating a comforting rhythm below. Daniel wrapped his arm around Emma's waist, pulling her close, and she leaned into him, feeling the warmth and security of his embrace. They spoke of plans, dreams, and small hopes for the future. The conversation flowed easily. Yet beneath the casual words was an unspoken acknowledgement of the night that had passed, a night of confession, understanding, and emotional reckoning. Daniel shared small details from his past that he hadn't mentioned before, filling in gaps that Emma had never known existed. There were stories of friendships lost, regrets he had carried quietly, choices that had shaped his character. Emma listened intently, absorbing every word, not with judgment, but with compassion and admiration. She saw the man he was fully, and in doing so, she loved him even more. He was not perfect, but his imperfections were part of his truth, and his willingness to share them strengthened the bond between them as they stood there. Looking out over the awakening city, Emma reflected on her own life, the choices that had brought her here, the risks she had taken, the moments of uncertainty that had led her to Daniel. She realized that love was not a storybook journey, but a series of decisions, moments of courage, and the willingness to remain open even when the outcome was uncertain. That wedding night, though fraught with tension and revelation, had become the first test of that courage, and together they had passed it by mid-morning. They moved back inside, settling on the sofa near the window. Emma leaned against Daniel's shoulder, her fingers entwined with his. They laughed softly at small, shared memories, recounted their favorite moments of the wedding, and spoke quietly about the life they envisioned together. Each word, each glance, each touch reinforced a sense of unity that neither had expected to feel so strongly after a night of difficult truths. Daniel reflected on how fragile yet resilient human emotions could be. One night could shift everything, yet love had the power to anchor them, to provide stability amid uncertainty. He realized that honesty was not just about revealing mistakes or past connections. It was about showing vulnerability, trusting someone to accept you fully, and allowing that acceptance to deepen intimacy. Emma had given him that gift, and he vowed silently to honor it every day of their lives together. Emma, for her part, felt a renewed sense of clarity and commitment. She understood that marriage was more than celebration, and ceremony was partnership, resilience, and unwavering trust. The events of the wedding night had tested both, yet they had emerged not only intact but stronger. She realized that love could not thrive in a bubble of perfection. It grew in the soil of reality, watered by honesty, empathy, and shared vulnerability. Hours passed quickly as they moved through the suite together, preparing for the day ahead. They laughed, teased each other gently, and spoke in quiet tones. about mundane yet meaningful things, plans for their honeymoon, hopes for their home, dreams for the years to come. The night's tension had dissipated, replaced by a warm, enduring bond. A shared understanding that life would be complex, but that they would navigate it as partners, equals, and lovers. Eventually, the afternoon sun touched the room, and they prepared to leave the suite. They dressed carefully, exchanging glances that spoke of unspoken promises and mutual admiration. Stepping into the hall, they were greeted by the world outside, a world that had continued in their absence, oblivious to the emotional journey they had undertaken. Yet, in their hearts, everything had changed. The wedding night that had begun with nerves and uncertainty had evolved into a testament to love, trust, and resilience. Walking side by side through the streets, hand in hand, Emma and Daniel felt a profound sense of unity. Each step was light, yet purposeful, as if the ground itself acknowledged the bond they shared. They spoke little, letting their presence speak volumes. Every glance, every touch, every subtle smile conveyed the depth of their connection. Connection forged not in the absence of difficulty, but in the careful, loving navigation of it. By evening, they returned to their home, the first day of their married life stretching ahead of them. Daniel held Emma close, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Whatever life throws at us," he said quietly, "we'll handle it together." Last night was just the beginning. Emma smiled, her heart full, and nodded. "Yes," she said, "together." And in that moment, the city outside seemed smaller, the world quieter, and their love brighter than ever. That wedding night, filled with unexpected revelations, had not broken them. It had strengthened them, tested them, and ultimately united them in ways neither could have imagined. Emma and Daniel had faced uncertainty, confronted the shadows of the past, and emerged more connected, more trusting, and more in love. Their marriage had begun not with illusions of perfection, but with the reality of honesty, the courage of vulnerability, and the warmth of enduring love. As the first week of their married life unfolded, they carried the lessons of that night into every moment, speaking openly, listening carefully, and approaching each challenge with patience and understanding. The night that changed everything had left an indelible mark on their hearts, a reminder that love was not just about romance, but about truth, resilience, and unwavering partnership.